Here I am with Mark Beaumont, who first of all became successful with his BBC show, The Man Who Cycled the World. And then after that, mate, you did The Man That Cycled America, the Americas. And now you've just broken a world record not long ago for Africa.
Back on the bike.
Tell me about the African trip, mate.
Well, it was just good to get back to I guess what I'm best known for, but also what I love the most, which is life on two wheels. For 5 years after the Americas, I headed out ocean rowing, mountaineering, going through the Arctic, all sorts of different adventures, and then was a big stint as just a TV presenter, and I enjoyed all of it. But to get back to that first passion, the thing I'm best at, life on two wheels. I've always looked at the round the world, the length of the Americas, and the length of Africa as the ultimate hat trick. That's the big three. I mean, we could argue all day about the great bike rides around the globe, but that pretty much, if you look at a school map of the world, crosses the major inhabited continents. So I'd always dreamt about getting those three, and I didn't seriously give it thought as to when or how Africa would happen. But after the Commonwealth Games came to a close in August 2014, and I'd just been a TV presenter interviewing amazing athletes week in, week out for like a year. I was just so inspired's the good way of saying it. I was just so jealous. I was just like, my job is now telling other people's stories, and as much as I loved that, I realised, I still had the fire in the belly, and I just wanted to get back to trying to smash records. I've always loved going fast. I've always tried to, not beat the man on my shoulder, but just figure out how hard I can push myself. I'd be the worst nomadic traveller in the world. And so Africa for me was just taking it to the next level, coming back, relaunching my career as an athlete, and just trying to figure out how fast you can get from top to bottom. It was 160 miles a day for 41 days.
160? Which
is okay if you're going around Wales, Scotland or England, but 160 miles a day through the Sahara, the Ethiopian highlands, these are pretty tough terrains.
It's still not easy doing 160 miles going through England, mate. Do you know what I mean? That's a long way to go. A day, every bang, bang, bang.
Yeah, no, it was, and keeping, it's, the round the world for me was nearly 10 years ago. So it's interesting looking back on that, because I was wide-eyed and naive then. I was straight out of university. I'd never pedalled outside of Europe, and roughly I did 100 miles a day for half a year for the circumnavigation, which was an 18,000 mile.
Yeah.
And looking back, like at the time, it was massive, and it's what launched my career, and the book and the doc did all brilliantly. But the sport has moved on beyond recognition in the last 8-9 years. Whereas you used to have touring over here and then racing there, there's now all these guys and girls going pretty much race style, but solo unsupported across continents. I mean, it's on another level, and I've sort of watched the evolution of the sport quite enviously over the years. Whereas back in the day with the world and the Americas, I was still full pannier bags, laden up with all the kit, but still trying to go as fast as I can. Whereas Africa, fast forward to what I'm doing now, carbon ultralight setup, 7.5 kilos of kit. I'm just going absolute hell for leather. And I also train differently. I've got a decade of experience, so I'm definitely a much better bike rider. And you learn sort of more and more in terms of the mental resolve as well, just having that resilience. And you figure out, those worst days are your best days in terms of what actually makes the difference when it comes to breaking records. And it was funny because at the end of 2014, when I decided to get back on the bike and try to break another record, I was in the worst shape of my life. I'd spent 1.5 years living in hotels and planes as a TV presenter. So it was a big leap from that point, going from talking about sport to actually being, in the best shape of my life and smashing out. Well, the plan was 150 miles a day. And then in the end, by the time I got down to Zambia, Botswana, South Africa, the roads were good. Food was easier to find. I had a bit of a tailwind, and I just went hell for leather and really took 18 days off the record in the end.
18 days, that's phenomenal, mate. Put it there, mate.
Thank you.
Fantastic.
I'm sure you know what it feels like.
Yeah, I just, not so much on a bike. I know how to run a little bit, but now when you were going down Africa, mate, did you see any people with long necks? And do you know what I mean? I've seen these people with rings around their necks and bones in their nose and stuff like that. Did you have any Zulus chasing you and stuff like that, mate?
I had the most phenomenal welcome the whole way through. It's funny because I did a ton of press before going to Africa, and the questions were basically in 3 categories. What about Ebola? What about terrorism and attacks and the risks of you'll face? And what about sort of the wildlife and being eaten by lions? Like, it was all these extremes.
Yeah.
And we were really guilty in the UK and Europe and of talking about the African continent like it's one country. You've got to understand the scale, the diversity, the beauty, the geography. It's nuts. It's incredible. When you see the African continent like a slideshow as you race down it, 6,750 miles, it's just extraordinary. Put it this way, I carried a tent because you'd be crazy to go without it. So I had the ability to go wild and stay wherever at night. I never once had to use it. I didn't unpack my tent. I never had to ask a second person for a meal to eat or a place to sleep each night. So it didn't matter if I was in the Sudanese desert at a truck stop at the side of the road, up in a little village in the Ethiopian highlands at 3,000 metres, or out in the great grasslands of Tanzania, or I just met some cattle herder who was looking after his cows. Everyone just, as soon as I asked, I was looked after. And I just found that the fact that you do have, such different cultures and people all the way through, that to be able to come back and say that's one of the friendliest, most welcoming places I've ever been, phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal. And you're absolutely right. Yeah, I met some awesome characters, amazing characters. North Kenya is probably where I met, was going through those sort of tribal lands, the Maasai and lots of other tribes, and the herders at the side of the road. You'd think they were in their absolute best dress, with these incredible necklaces and earrings, and the different colourful garb, the different clothes that they wear. I mean, you'd think that was them dressed up, but that's every day, and it's just the men and the women, incredibly beautiful. I mean, just staggering. And you just cycle along, you're racing along, you got your own mission to smash a world record, but just soaking up all this beauty.
Fantastic.
Yeah, the landscapes, the people, it's amazing. The only thing that it really missed as a journey was the wildlife. Everyone comes back and it was just like, what about the lions? You have to actually look very hard to find wild Africa.
Yeah.
And it's kind of sad. I got 3/4 of the way down the continent and all I'd seen was a couple of baboons and a few zebra. It's not the Africa of our dreams anymore. You have to go to conservations and reserves to find that wilder side, which is kind of a sad story.
Yeah. It's fantastic, mate.
Yeah, it's a staggering place, and so many people come to me all the time and they ask about Africa, Central America, Middle East and Asia, and they always talk about fears.
Yeah.
And I mean, I've been to about 125 countries in the last decade, and I've been in more tight corners than most, I would suggest, and yet my experience of humanity is incredibly positive.
Yeah.
I've been mugged, pickpocketed,
America,
knocked off my bike, run
America,
over. Yeah,
didn't it?
Yeah, and lots of stuff which has been fairly threatening. But the sum total is you come back and you go, people are genuinely good.
They are.
And
most of them,
and people are aghast when I tell them, look, I just cycled alone down Africa and I didn't even have a lock with me. I didn't. You've kind of got. Yeah, you learn to be a bit streetwise, but you also learn to trust.
And because you were looked after quite a lot there, mate. Now, one of the things that I asked Levison Wood and Alistair Humphreys the other day, because we talked a little bit about Bear Grylls, you're all outdoor sort of persons. Did you ever get to the stage where you had to drink your own pish? Now, in Scotland, that means urine.
I have never, and I'd like to think I would never. But do you know why? Even if you can do that, and I can't imagine it's good for you.
Bear loves it, though. I reckon he goes to bars and just he just fills up himself.
Like Levison, like Al, we're certainly not defending anything that Bear does. It's it's one of these things that I would never call myself an explorer.
Yeah.
I'm pretty careful about these titles that people give you.
Yeah.
I'm an endurance athlete. I'm sometimes an adventurer, but I'm really an endurance athlete.
Yeah.
I'm out there these days in particular, and I'm just trying to figure out how far I can push myself across these big continent-wide, world record attempts. So stick me into the unknown and tell me to survive. Yeah, I'd be all right. I grew up on a farm. I'm resilient enough, but it's not. I'm not Ray Mears. I'm not eating mushrooms and bugs, and I'm certainly not drinking piss.
You're not Jordan, are you, mate? In this, I'm a celebrity, get me out of here with Ant and Dec, eating cockroaches and stuff like that.
I think any of those guys you mentioned, Bear Levison, Al, myself, well, I'd love to be asked. I'm sure we all would be, but we're not who they want, because they want people who are going to freak out at that stuff.
This is it, and the thing is, it's like someone was saying to me, "Oh, you need to go on this program." It's like, you're like.
I'm not saying I'd be brilliant at it.
Yeah, but you still, it's more off the duck's back, isn't it? So, but you're right. They need those people to just fears, mate. Because a lot of people do 9 to 5 and stuff like that, and they think, how can I get out into the world a bit more? And they're a bit frightened of, they've got the jobs. How did you make that transition to sort of just like, I'm going?
Well, it's easier to make the transition if you never actually do the day job thing. But the myth of that is that people who, are professional athletes or adventurers, explorers, whatever, don't do the desk job thing. They're lying if they say they don't. The amount of admin time, planning, prep to be able to go and live these big dreams is phenomenal. I mean, anyone that ploughs their own furrow, anyone that runs their own business will tell you exactly the same. So my life now looks like, young family at home, absolutely the best thing in my life, and then incredibly busy, working on events and broadcast and telling stuff, but then constantly trying to figure out what's the next big milestone. What are the things which I'm actually passionate about? If money was nothing, what would I be doing with time? Because time is the scarcest commodity, and let's make each period of time count. It's kind of that career defining stuff. I don't want to just sort of exist and pay the bills. I want to actually do stuff which I'm going to look back on with pride. And I also think it's a conversation about what do I most want to do now compared to what do I most want to do, period. Like, what's most important? What's career defining? And if you bumble along just doing what you want to do now, you actually never end up doing the important stuff. So it's like like stopping and actually with each period of time, it's great to catch up with you in January, because you're sort of New Year's resolutions. You're sitting here going, what's this year going to look like? And I try and do that pretty regularly to make sure that what I'm focused on is relevant. So to go back to your original question, because I'm getting lost. The part about how you create the leap and how you do what you want to do, it's no more complicated than just do it. My point is that most people have got good ideas almost every day, but it's pretty hard to action them, and it's harder and harder to actually put these ideas into practice once you get stuck into lots of different responsibilities. And it's always to do with expectations of other people. So if those who are closest around you, who are constantly supporting you, you suddenly create a leap, you do something massively different, it's very hard to take them all along with you. So it's much, much easier, if this is just who you are, you're true to yourself, and people get used to that. So you can't use this line forever, but that whole who you married sort of thing, when my wife is a million miles from me in terms of adventurous spirit and wanting to go out and smash records and do all that, but she does support me brilliantly, because of what I've been doing since the moment we met. Now imagine the other me, who graduated 10 years ago in economics and politics, which I did, and I'd gone in and done my accountancy for 10 years, and I was now 33 saying to you, I want to cycle around the world. Now, not just is that difficult because I've got to skill up in terms of figuring out how you actually do that, get the sponsors and the media and all the practical stuff, but the support network around you, the stuff that keeps you happy, it's quite hard to create the leap for them as well. So I think that making sure that those who are important to you are on board with your plans is massively important, because we all wake up and have eureka moments, but the thing which pays dividends is being consistent. And if you can be consistent about doing what's important as opposed to just being busy with stuff, then ultimately you create that stuff which is career defining. But when people come to me all the time and sort of say, I want to do X but I can't, then the thing which is normally stopping them is not the fact that they can't do X. Most people are good at what they say they're going to do. It's just having the confidence and the wherewithal to see it through. Yeah.
So do you think a big part of succeeding is having courage and boldness then?
Yeah, it's absolutely to do with courage, but courage comes in strange ways. I wouldn't consider myself an alpha male. I'm not somebody who's heart and soul of I would struggle. I'm very happy in front of a an audience. You know, sharing stories, selling ideas. That's where I feel absolutely at home. But having confidence can suggest just a complete sort of, a complete bullshit. I'm going to take on the world and conquer. I think I've got quite a quiet confidence.
It is, yeah.
And I think that a lot of that comes from doing things since I was young, building experience, having support from those who are important around me. And like everyone else, I face massive insecurities, internal battles. And I wake up, some mornings, especially if you don't get enough sleep, I find, and you just think, what am I doing? And the scale of the challenges I'm taking on scares the hell out of me. I mean, really, I think... But then other moments when I'm out on the bike training and the endorphins are flowing, I literally sort of bellow with triumph, and I'm like, this, I'm taking on the world and I can do this. But the more extreme what you're taking on, the more I find personally you sort of oscillate between, that sort of doubt and security in what you're doing. So it's absolutely wrong to just sort of say, have courage, be great, go and conquer.
Yeah.
I think the bigger your dreams and the more you risk, the more you face your big demons in doing that. So courage is quite a front-facing thing. Courage is what other people see. When people meet me and talk about my successes, they almost suggest it looks easy, but that's because they've not been on the journey. And if you lived with me, you might understand that a bit better. I'm not inviting you to
live with you. It's all right, mate. I've lived in Scotland for 5 years.
I know you have.
I love the Scottish people, but I was like, it's a little bit colder up there than Wales even, mate. We might get more rain now. It's just raining and raining all the time.
You're all right. You're Arbroath. You just lived on fish suppers.
I just use Smokies, mate. I was on Arbroath Smokies all the time. What's your favourite place in the world?
That's an easy one, isn't it?
Scotland. Apart from Scotland, one of the two places that you.
It's got to be home. I mean, that's what you learn the more you travel. Okay, I'll answer that in two parts, but as concisely as I can. The places I'd like to go back and explore the most are always the ones which surprise you. All right.
Yeah.
So, for example, New Zealand.
Yeah.
It's exactly what you expect it's going to be. It's great. Okay. Love New Zealand, but it's kind of exactly what you think. So for that, it doesn't really surprise you.
Yeah.
You go to Iran. You go to Sudan. These are phenomenal places.
Yeah.
Beautiful history, beautiful people, food, culture. It's these places which I go into with trepidation and worry, and I just get there and I'm just thinking, what is all the fuss about? Yeah. These places are incredible. Yeah. They've got closed, relatively closed borders, international sanctions for whatever reason at the macro level, at the government level, at the trade level. There's a ton of issues, but people are people.
Yeah.
And so the places which I'm desperate to go back to and explore are those places that surprise me. But they're not necessarily the places that I would rush back with my family. Now I've got young kids, and so a few of those highlights for absolute out and out beauty and just cool places. Cook Islands, Rarotonga.
Yeah. That's
pretty awesome. No, the whole Pacific region. I spent 2 months going out through the Pacific region. There's some awesome places out there.
Yeah. Get yourself to the Cook Islands, people.
Yeah, just amazing people. They just party and eat and go diving, and yeah, it's pretty nice out there.
What would you say are like three keys to success?
3 keys to success. Nothing like the tough questions. Okay. This is not going to be popular.
Don't need to be, mate. We don't even care about these people who are watching it. I'm joking.
You've got to be realistic.
Yeah.
Okay. So when you set these ambitions, you've got to be massively ambitious, but you've got to base your ambitions in reality. And so I don't care whether it's the adventure world, the business world, the arts world, whatever it is. There's no point in being pie in the sky. I'm all for reaching for the stars, but there's a fine balance between that and what you can actually build something that you're able to do. You can grow over years to take on, but I see when people fail, normally it's because they do bite off too much, and so that's a hard thing to say when you go out there smashing world records all the time. And don't get me wrong, I scare myself silly with the scale of some of my ambitions, but before I go public on anything, I know that in theory it's possible.
Yeah. Okay.
This is not just some pie in the sky.
Yeah.
You got to make ends meet. Success. You've got to be You got to be technically good at what you're going to do. You run, I cycle, whatever, art, music, whatever it is. But if you're ultimately going to create a profile and create a business out of what you do, then you've got to have some other skills as well. You've got to be able to talk about it. You got to be able to share your stories. You've got to be able to engage with people. I mean, I think one of the greatest gifts you can give young people is the ability and the confidence to share their stories, engage with people, and really, really communicate in a meaningful way, because that's the heart of any successful ambition, organisation, business, anything. And I see it time and time again with expeditions. You know, you might go out there and take on one great journey for yourself, but the ability to go back time and time again is really the ability to take people with you. So there's that communication. So where did we go with that? One,
be realistic.
You got to
shoot for the stars.
Yeah, exactly. You know, a massive thing about success is communication. You know, communication and being able to share your passion, share your dream, put it across to people. And the hardest bit is consistency.
Yeah.
You know, we're all good at having moments of, you know, big eureka moments where we're just gonna smash it. Consistency, and it's an old cliche and the stuff you don't want to hear, but what you eat every day, what you train every day, what you plan every day, your time management, everything is what builds up to those successes. So, you know, the better you are at that micro stuff, it's that old cliche, and I can't remember who said it, but you can't actually do anything great. You can only do small things greatly. We can only actually affect pretty small stuff.
Habits, isn't it?
It's habits. Habits is a big part of it.
Yeah.
But when you think about it, you can't actually cycle around the world. You can cycle 100 miles today, and I can get that into my head.
Yeah.
And then you do that enough, and you're going to get around the world. That idea of what you can actually affect here and now. Because the reality is, when you come to big projects and dreams, people waste a ton of time focusing on stuff they can't affect. So that sort of slightly different view on the world, where you do end up doing career-defining stuff, but what you're actually thinking about is very doable and relatively small. Yeah.
And it's like I was just with Ricky Cooper, the Welsh polo captain, and I said, because all you see is his stuff on Facebook, and it's like he's in Aspen, he's in Scottsdale in Arizona, he's in flipping the Middle East, he's all over the place, and I mean, and people look at that and they think, God, you've got this phenomenal lifestyle, and in many ways it is. But he was just saying to me, he said, I tell you what, Mark, it's a lot of hard work that goes into it that people don't actually realise. Is that the same sort of thing with you? Because you look like, you know, basically, I turned on the telly many years ago, the man that cycled around the world, he's on the telly, he's got the book out, you know, he's giving talks, and he's right up there, one of the most famous adventurers in the UK, and then you're like, is there a lot of stuff behind the scenes that people don't see, and but you've already touched on, you've had insecurities.
Yeah, I mean, you never talk about when you've got a public profile.
Yeah.
And people do, in some ways, sort of look at that, and it's escapism. So they turn on the telly and go, I'd love to do what that guy does. I do always qualify that statement and say to people, I think you like the idea of what I do, and that's not a hero statement. But when you're out there for racing 160 miles a day for 41 days, there's a lot of pain. And,
it's brutal,
but none of that is ever a sympathy statement. You know, you know, you do end up really enjoying sort of the business behind the scenes, making ends meet, trying to figure out how you have the opportunities to keep doing this stuff, just setting your own schedule. It's great fun waking up each year and going, right, what are we going to do? What's important? You know, that's a freedom which I realise, you know, is hard earned. Nobody wakes up and you know, can just do that unless you're maybe born into money. But so my reality is I spend half my life in a suit, half my life in Lycra.
Yeah.
You know, I've got a real business career to be able to be an elite athlete and to still push myself as a bike rider and doing the other sporting ambitions I do, which I enjoy, and I genuinely enjoy all of it. But the man on the street, the woman on the street knows Mark Beaumont as a bike rider, which is great. And they don't particularly know or care about what I do the rest of the time. And I'm a family man, and there's tons of other priorities in my life, which makes life as a 33-year-old a ton more complicated than it was as a 23-year-old when I cycled around the world. You know, but that's all good. You know, it's not no part of that is you know, poor me, hard graft. It's what gets me up in the morning. It's what I enjoy. when I was the job I did as a TV presenter, I remember when I got that gig, and it was basically going to every Commonwealth country. And I said to my friends, I'm going to be in a new country every 3 days for 9 months. Going to 68 nations and territories, about 140 flights, and you
140 flights.
Yeah, in 9 months. So you think about the experiences. You think
like P. Diddy, mate, jet setting all over the world.
It was ridiculous. During that period, my wee sister was a aircrew, and I was flying significantly more than she was. But you say that to people, and I said it's really hard work. Yeah. It's genuinely hard work. We're turning around news stories all the time, doing the research, hitting the ground, jet lagged. New country every 3 days. It's absolutely relentless.
Yeah.
And inevitably, you got zero sympathy from
no, you won't.
anyone. But that's not why you do it. And that sort of, I kind of try to treat each of these projects. I don't care whether it's riding my bike or writing a book or doing a presenting job like that. They all feel like expeditions. These are just periods where you got to get your head down. Yep. It's great fun. The experiences are awesome, but it's hard work. Yeah.
Yeah. And you're doing talks at the moment.
Yeah.
You going around the country?
Yeah, back on the road. It's a number of years since I've done that. I enjoy talking. If you hadn't noticed, and it was.
I hadn't noticed that you enjoyed talking at all, mate. But that's good, It's sometimes it is actually, as an interviewer, it's actually quite good to just sit back, and I'm happy. I love listening to people anyway. So there's fortunately, I haven't even got my pad with me. A lot of the time, I'm asking questions. I thought, do you know what? With this one, I'm just gonna sit down and we're just gonna have a chat. And I didn't, but
that's good.
It's not good.
That's all right. So far, so good. I mean, I do so many talks anyway, which tend to be business talks, which are great, and I enjoy for many different reasons. You are really making an impact there. But there's something different about doing a UK tour, and I've done it twice before. This is my third UK tour, because these are members of the public who know me. They've maybe watched me on the telly or read the books, and they want to know more. And so as public events, they're fireside chats. I get to stand up there and just tell stories. There's no business message. There's no mentoring. There's nothing within it that you're trying to sort of build on. It's just purely standing there as a storyteller and sharing adventures, sharing unseen footage, pulling together clips from the expeditions, having all the photography to bring it to life as well. It's great fun, and it's also a chance for fans, friends, people who are part of these journeys to get involved, ask questions, and I spend so much of my life going between Edinburgh, London, Edinburgh, and working in sort of the business world. It's wonderful just to get out there and meet people, because telly's weird, because you think telly's going to be the most sociable thing in the world, but you never actually get that direct feedback. And it's not like you do it for the direct feedback, but there's something lovely at each event, especially afterwards, when you just chat to people and they say, you got me back on my bike.
Things like that.
And it happens all the time, and I love it. And it sounds like you're a complete ego for that, but it's that interaction between why I do journeys, why I share journeys, and then hearing sort of the positive feedback from what makes all that worth it.
Yeah. Did you feel a little bit scared, because it was like public speaking? They did surveys on it, and they reckon that public speaking is a bigger fear than death itself. Were you a little bit scared the first time you got in front of a few hundred people, or how were you?
No.
You were just like that?
No. I really enjoy public speaking.
Like Liam Gallagher, mate, where you're like, have some of this, it's Mark Beaumont, mate. We go like that.
No. I mean, that's where you and I are different, because I can imagine you would do that.
What are you talking about, mate? You think I'm going to get on the stage and then just start, have some of this then, have some of this? Do you think?
I think it's funny, because confidence comes in many shapes and forms. I mean, as a kid, I was put on the stage as a musician, and in all sorts of competitions to do poetry and stuff. I'm not kidding. When I was, 8, 9, 10, and I had a sort of an alternative start, because I didn't go to school until secondary school. So I was homeschooled, and I was, doing stuff like so.